Hello, and welcome back to the Adventures in Marketing podcast. I am your host, Gwen Montoya. I'm really thrilled to have you here. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about giving ourselves permission to experiment, permission to try something new, and why and how that can be beneficial. Because I think it's really common for us as business owners, one, to get in ruts and we get into the same thing over and over again. We do the same thing over and over again, and we do it for a long time to the point that it can feel a little constricting and it can feel a little confining. And then we start to rebel and we don't want to do it. So let's talk about what it means to give ourselves permission to experiment and permission to try something new. Have you ever been in a rut in your business? You've been doing the same thing over and over again, and fine, it works, but you're not excited, you're not thrilled, you're not inspired, and you start to feel a little rebellious about your own business. And even worse than feeling rebellious and feeling like you don't want to do it anymore, you're feeling bored. And you're thinking, maybe this is it. Maybe this is as far as you go. Maybe it's time to get something new going. Maybe it's time to sell this business. Maybe it's time to close it. But what if instead of the burn it all down phase, which I know sometimes we need that too, but what if instead of that, what if it is you're not giving yourself permission to experiment and you're not giving yourself permission to try new things to see how it works from a place of curiosity instead of feeling like you have to do it a certain way every time? So, like I said, maybe you're bored. Maybe you've been doing this for a long time. Maybe you're just not enjoying it anymore. Or maybe the things that used to work aren't working quite as well or aren't working the way that you would expect them to work. Maybe it's time to get a little experimental and try some new things. And again, this does not mean burn it all down, destroy everything, and start over. For the most part, that's probably not the best way to go, although sometimes it would feel really good. So instead of that, let's think about what you're offering in your business. Let's think about what services you offer. Let's think about how you talk about it. Maybe changing those up would bring you something new. It would revitalize it. It would give you a new approach. It would inspire you to try something different. All of those are ways that you can experiment. And it doesn't even mean that you have to necessarily take them to market, right? You can just play with the idea of what your business could be in a safe space in a way that is not something that you are launching right away. You're just going to try it, right? You're just going to make some notes and think about how you would change your business if you could and what that would look like. And if you do find ideas that are good and are worth exploring, then you can take those and grow them and see what they turn into for your business. Maybe that would be really beneficial for you. Maybe just the idea of being playful and trying something new in your business would inspire you to try something different and maybe take it in a new direction. Or if nothing else, you could also see, yeah, actually, the way that I've been doing it actually does work. And that's the way that I want to keep doing it. But both of those outcomes would be beneficial. And you can't get there unless you are open and willing to try exploring. Or if you can see that there is definitely something that is not working in your business and you're really not happy with it, think about it. Try to think about what that disconnect is. Because a lot of times we immediately go to like it's a social media algorithm or there's something else outside force. But sometimes it's a way that we're offering it. It's the way that we are talking about it, or it's the audience that we're going after, and they're just not the right audience anymore. And so figuring out what that disconnect is, where you are unhappy with the things that are happening in your business, sometimes that again can inspire us to try some new things. I'm all for investing in your business. I do think that there are sometimes we do have to invest in our business. But when we are experimenting, when we are trying new things, I am a really big fan of what is the lowest, easiest thing that you can try that's not going to cost you money. I don't want you to, end this episode and immediately decide that you have to buy a $10,000 course or you have to, buy thousands of dollars of your equipment. When we're talking about experimenting, that's not what I mean. At some point, yes, maybe that works, but you can probably experiment and try new things at a very, very low price point or even free if you're just shifting some things around just to see how they'll work. And there's nothing wrong with investing in a business. Like I said, I just think sometimes we can get into these positions and we feel like the best option is to throw money at it when really the best option is to get a little curious and a little playful and try something different and just see how it works. So what am I talking about? What could you try? Right? What could you try in your business that's a little bit different? You could try a new offer. You could try branching out if your main audience is here. You could try branching off just a little bit to the left or just a little bit to the right, just slightly different than what you normally go after as far as an audience to see if there is an audience there that's waiting for you and they didn't know that you existed. But once you talk about it and once you are in front of them, they'll be excited. Another way to be curious and to be experimental in your business is to try showing up in a different way. especially if things aren't working very well, one of the best ways is to kind of shift how we show up. So maybe you've never done networking. Maybe now is a time, if you're feeling like you want to experiment or try something different, maybe now is the time to try networking, right? Or maybe you want to start a YouTube channel or a podcast, and that has been a thing that you've wanted to try for a long time because you want to experiment with it. You've seen other people have success. You want to see if that works for you. Both of those things can be done at a very, very low price point, practically free. So if that's something that you want to do, I highly encourage you to do that. I have a podcast episode about how I started my podcast. If you want to go back and find it, that might be a good place to start. I talk about the equipment and the reasons. I did my first 10 podcast episodes on my phone with GarageBand, recording in my closet, and then I upgraded over time to the equipment that I have now. But both of those things, if you want to experiment with that, those can be done very, very cheaply. It might also mean collaborating in a way that you've never collaborated in before. Maybe you haven't tried that. Maybe you want to form a group of business networking support, or maybe you want to get in front of new people and you want to start speaking. Thinking about different ways that you can be curious and experimental in your business. Sometimes that is it's showing up more in different ways. Sometimes it is going after a different demographic. Sometimes it is having a new offer. All of these things can be done with curiosity and trying something new just to see if it works. If you've never really experimented in your business or you've never really branched out to try new things, it can feel really scary. But it's important to remember that as business owners, we're kind of already bucking the system. We don't have a 9 to 5, or maybe you have a 9 to 5, but you are working on growing your side hustle into your full time business, or maybe that's something that you have in your long range plans, right? Like we're already doing something that is different than most people do. So I think that we are already curious and people who want to learn more and try different things. I think that that is part of what makes owning a business exciting for us. That is part of what keeps us going. And I think that we like that challenge. So even if you're a little bit nervous about trying something new, I bet that you have already challenged yourself in 100 different ways. And I bet that you've succeeded at most of them because you're here. As a wrap up, when we try new things, when we experiment with our business, when we stay curious with it, when we stay nimble with it, it helps keep it interesting to us. It helps keep us engaged. It helps keep us excited. And it staves off that boredom that can happen when we are doing the same thing. Like I said, the same thing over and over the same way every time. We're not meant to do that. I think as business owners, we are meant to try different things. We are meant to experiment, and doing those experiments in really low risk ways that aren't going to, burn your business down or aren't going to involve you changing your name and moving to a new city. We can be curious, and that benefits us because again, it keeps us engaged in our business. It keeps us looking for opportunities instead of just keeping our heads down. Because I think if we just wanted to keep our heads down, we probably wouldn't start businesses. And you never know where these experiments will lead you. Even if you're not ever putting any of this into actual plans, if you're just kind of daydreaming and tying ideas together, that is really engaging for our brains. And I think that makes us happy. I think trying new things and being curious is kind of who we are. So if you experiment and you try something and it's a dud and it doesn't go anywhere, you learn some lessons. Hopefully they were not expensive lessons. But if you experiment and it works, then you have opened up something brand new in your business. And I want that for you. I want you to be excited when you sit down to work on your business. Either way, you'll never know unless you try. That's all I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions, send me an email at gwen@gwenmontoya.com. I would love to hear how you are experimenting or if you are inspired to experiment after listening to this episode.